Hi guys, today we are back with Dim and we're going to talk a little bit about the Euro 7 emissions and what that could mean for the next Porsche GT3. So obviously Porsche just released their new 992.2 Porsche GT3, which did not really have any horsepower bump. So it was a little suspicious. The car pretty much has the same power as before. The torque actually is a little bit lower. They kept the whole concept intact, but we are starting to worry about what's going to happen to the next GT3. Luckily this time it remained the good old high revs, naturally aspirated car that we love. But are we going to be able to maintain this in the coming years with the new, especially European emission standards? And based on what we see with the current technology going with the turbo, the GTS hybrid, we're going to try to speculate a little bit about what that means for the GT3. So let's get started. So Dim, tell us a little bit what's cooking right now in terms of Euro emissions.
Well, obviously, the biggest novelty is the Euro 7, which will kick in effect from January 2025. Now, Porsche has been ahead of the game so far, but I think times have caught up to them. They introduced petrol particulate filters to their cars to better comply. But it seems that with Euro 7, it may not be possible to have GT3 as it is in its current format. Now we're still looking into what Euro 7 will do exactly. They're looking more into tire abrasion, brake particles from brake dust, and so on.
Yeah. So what do you think? What is about the lower torque on the new GT3? Is that because of those like particles filter and all those things that were added on? Is that why we have different numbers then?
I don't think Porsche would tell us, but I would suspect so. Yes, either it's because of the OPF filters that strangle some performance, and it could also be a more conservative mapping for less emissions.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to see how often they kind of like limit their car now electronically, and maybe it would be interesting to see if after some people change the tuning or the exhaust and stuff, there could be maybe more horsepower bump actually, because I think they are pushing the engine even more now, but because of a restriction, they obtain the same amount of power. So it would be very cool if when people start modifying those cars, adding exhaust and changing the ECU, they could actually get maybe a lot more power than the first gen 992 GT3. So that would be a little bit of a fun factor. But yeah, right now it's losing a little bit of torque. But again, luckily the car doesn't seem to be any slower. But most likely, there are going to be some change. So what do you think is the future of the Porsche GT3? You're mentioning in your article like the Bugatti, maybe a hint to what could happen.
Well, yes, I mean, Autocar had an interview with Porsche GT boss, and he was worried that the next gen GT3 might not be able to cover emissions as is. So they're looking into some options. It's almost guaranteed that the next gen GT3 will not be more of the same. So viable options are either forced induction in the form of turbocharging or hybrid. Now, it seems that both are equally likely. To be honest, my money is on a hybrid, and there is a very good reason for it. And it has to do with Bugatti, which is partially owned by Porsche.
Yeah.
It
So yeah, I
could
think the latest one is they kept a very high revving engine, but they added also hybridization, right?
Right, that's exactly what they did with the Bugatti Tourbillon. They kept the V16, well, it's a V16 now, not a W16, turned it into a high rev normally aspirated, and they've added hybrid tech in the form
Yeah.
of electric motors. And
Yeah.
I suspect this is what they might do to the Porsche 911 GT3.
Yeah, because we saw a couple of hybridization already on the GTS. Why do you think they would not go for the turbocharging aspect of it, it would change the car too much. It would get too close to the turbo, I guess.
Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. I think going turbo would diminish what the GT3 stands for. It's supposed to be the most hardcore, more the purest 911 of all, and the main reason people buy it is that high rev, normally aspirated flat six. I think if we lose that, we lose one of the best cars ever made.
Yeah.
Porsche's lineup.
Yeah, but I think the problem with hybridization is also that we would lose the manual gearbox, from what I understand. Like the new GTS 992.2 only come in Tiptronic, right? But
Well,
not
not
Tiptronic,
necessarily.
PDK. Okay.
Sorry. Most manufacturers are foregoing the manual, especially in hybrid applications, but we've seen builds like, I believe it was Kalmar's Evolt, which is a classic 911 powered by I think it was a Tesla motor, I'm not sure. One of them had no, it was BB Autos, actually. BB Autos 911 Turbo Targa, I believe. And that one was a hybrid with a manual. So I think it's a question of whether Porsche decides it's worth the development money to give us a hybrid with a manual. I hope they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see if they could do that in manual. I guess everything is possible, but yeah, the manual gearbox would have to have some kind of pretty interesting electronics to make it work. But at Porsche, I'm sure they can potentially figure it out. I mean, it would be interesting to see how they would do that. But again, maybe the Porsche Targa, the Porsche GTS hybrid may come in manual after a while. We'll see that happen. If that happened, that could be a good testing ground for them to see how they can make it work in manual and then pushing it maybe into the GT3. I think it'd be interesting to see in the next year or two how customers really react to the GTS hybrid. Is that going to be a good seller? And if people actually push for the manual, I mean, by that time, maybe the next GT3 could have a hybrid manual. But I guess there's some crazy rumors on the internet that are floating about a 6-stroke engine. So what is this all about?
Yes, the 6-stroke engine. We actually don't know if it's happening. Porsche did patent this engine. So it has, the main thing about it is it has I believe it was two power strokes and two compression strokes. So the crankshaft actually sat on an axle. So it has two top end dead centers and two bottom dead centers for the pistons. So it'll be interesting how this would work in practice. Now, I actually I read a thread on Reddit. A lot of people are worried that it's just another thing that can potentially break down, make the engine more complex.
Yeah. I mean, it looks a little bit to me like a Mazda rotary engine, where there is kind of like a rotary movement here with those gears that is happening that make the engine a lot more complex. But I think there is a little bit of a sense of a rotary thing that's going in there. So, but I guess it would be super compact and it could potentially help. I don't know what about the CO2 emission of those cars, but yeah, it's interesting that they are mentioning this. I would totally be groundbreaking. God knows what kind of power they can get with this. Maybe they can turn 4-cylinder and lowering the displacement or something. So I think that's promising. Let's see what happened with that. I don't think it's been seen in a while at all. But what we have seen in a while though is the use of synthetic gas, and I guess that could also be saving the good old engine. I guess. Do you know if those synthetic fuel have less emission?
Porsche haven't given us exact numbers still. We know that the biggest problem is logistics. Interesting thing is that Porsche's synthetic fuels actually have the same molecular structure as gasoline, but it doesn't pollute nearly as much. I think the real challenge here is how to get the fuel to where it's at, where most consumers are, how to make it more accessible. As of now, it's still an issue, but hopefully within the next few years they will figure it out.
I see that they've done it just for their at least their race series now has this kind of fuel, but obviously it's pretty easy for them to bring the fuel just to the racetrack, so it's not too difficult, because if you have to fuel your Porsche car only at your Porsche dealer, it's going to severely restrict what happened. But at least it's an interesting potential concept to, I don't know, maybe they can get away with some kind of rules by being able to run some cars on this. I mean, I think it's what BMW and Toyota were working on hydrogen engine. I think the manufacturers are starting to get together to see if they can preserve the internal combustion engine maybe with different fuel. Personally, I think hydrogen seems to be like a no-brainer, but I'm surprised why Porsche did not go that way and they want to go with their like hybrid fuel. I guess maybe they are dreaming to sell hybrid fuel to the entire world in some kind of way. I don't know.
I think it's more about having the infrastructure to do so. I mean, we saw what happened with Tesla's superchargers, how long it took for them to become more accessible. And hydrogen is good in theory, but with synthetic fuels, I mean, many manufacturers, Toyota included, have completed successful tests. And unlike hydrogen, these synthetic fuels, they do not require any modifications to the existing engines.
Yeah. I mean, if they could start distributing it in all the gas station where you can select like diesel, normal, premium fuel, if you just add synthetic fuel on the side, and they could mainstream production, that would solve it. That would be pretty cool. But I don't know how long it's going to take them to do this, because the problem is that those Euro 7 regulations are coming in really quickly. So I hate to feel like a broken record, but again, now Porsche enthusiasts are fearing that this is the last naturally aspirated GT3. So I'm really curious to see. I've heard that so many times. I really don't think it will be, but if it happened, that would mean that this car would be like the most advanced ICE GT3 for sale, and so I'm expecting the price of those things to skyrocket as usual.
Oh, that's a given. That's pretty much guaranteed with 911s, especially the GT3.
Yeah.
I think the 992.2 would be especially sought after, because we don't know what's happening with the next generation yet. We know it's not going to be like the previous ones, for better or worse.
Yeah, I think we went a long way anyway from all those cars here. It's funny to see an image with all the first one, the 996, 97, 991, 992. I think there are a lot to choose from. What's interesting, I guess, for the pricing, to just close on this for people who want to buy those cars, is that at least the production has increased quite a lot. At first it started with like 1,000 car a year, then 2,000. I think now we're like 6,000-7,000 produced every year. Maybe on this one they would maybe even produce even more. I mean, the demand is just so high, and especially the price premium asked for, I think it's $60,000 more than the previous year GT3. So you'd think that Porsche would be highly encouraged to produce a lot of those. So that may be a good news there. So I think let's see a little bit how this plays out. Again, I think there are a lot of at least avenue to make still an exciting road legal track car with the GT3. So I think between synthetic fuel, turbocharged, hybrid, and maybe even rotary 6-stroke engine, hopefully we'll still be entertained quite a bit with the next GT3. But thanks for shedding some light with the potential European menace that's coming on the GT3. Let's follow up on this when we know a little bit more then.
We'll definitely dig more about this, and as always, we'll share what we find with you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. Bye.